last week I built a PC with my viewers, and I promised I'll talk about the 950 Singapore dollars streaming / content creation gaming PCs build that I actually did. So today we'll be talking about that. So if you are wondering why the title is $800, it's because I'm trying to attract a bigger audience, and it is technically about $800 if you convert the currency to US dollars. So let's talk about the parts that go into this rig and why specifically I chose them. Now before I start the video, if you have any questions you want to ask them in the comments, ask on Instagram and I'll reply. So the reason that this PC is a streaming content creation build is because this PC is going to be used in a small little startup where they're trying to stream and host mobile tournaments for mobile games, mobile phone games. And there is a huge market for this, even if you are slightly elitist and might look down on mobile gamers. But Mobile Legends and things like PUBG Mobile have huge fan bases all around the world, especially in Southeast Asia. It's really strong, the fan bases. And if you so they needed a PC that was good for a little bit of gaming, but mostly for streaming, video editing, so that they can both upload clips onto their page and also they can stream whatever tournament they are running. So let's talk about the parts. First off, the CPU, it's the RYZEN 5 3600. Because we're quite budget limited and we had a lot of requirements for this rig, there was a very difficult balancing act between going with a very beastly CPU and sacrificing possibly something like RAM or storage or whatever it might be. So we really had no choice but to go with the RYZEN 5 3600 in this rig. Which is not even a bad CPU at all. Why am I complaining? It's a 6-core 12-chip processor with plenty of gigahertz to go around, plenty of single core performance, and it's going to be excellent for streaming and gaming and video editing, especially since we're not going to be doing all three of those things at one go. 6 cores is more than enough. The 12 threads are going to be excellent for streaming, and the single core performance is brilliant for video editing in whatever software you're using as well. So RYZEN 5 3600 can't go wrong. For RAM, we went with 16 gigabytes of RAM. This is a 3466, I think, a 3200 megahertz kit. I wanted a minimum 3000 megahertz kit because Ryzen really benefits from fast, quick RAM. Thankfully, the shop actually didn't have any 3000 megahertz, so they gave us 3200 megahertz and they didn't really charge us extra for it. 16 gigs is going to be plenty for streaming, especially if we're not streaming and gaming at the same time, and it's also going to be plenty for 1080p video edits, which is likely what they're going to be doing for their content creation side of things. So 16 gigs of RAM, tip top, brilliant, excellent, goes in there, job's done. The motherboard is a B450, I think it's a ASRock B450 Pro 4. No, it's a Gigabyte B450 DS3 HM. I was looking into getting the B450M Pro 4 because that motherboard is very good in terms of VRMs, gives a lot of overclocking headroom, and the DS3 Gigabyte motherboard is kind of wonky in terms of its power delivery and stuff. So we're not really going to be overclocking on this rig. But the thing is, the ASRock board was out of stock, so we had no choice but to go with the Gigabyte. Thankfully, the motherboard's really cheap, so while we can't overclock, at least we saved a little bit of money here and there with this motherboard. Very nice. So in terms of graphics card, this one is more of a very interesting choice. So we wanted to go really cheap on the GPU at first because we didn't need that powerful of GPU. I just needed NVENC encoding so that we could do shadow play and really good live streaming with the NVIDIA NVENC encoder. However, upon researching, I realized that the 1650 does not have the Turing-based NVENC encoder and use the older version of the NVENC encoder, which is substantially worse in terms of video quality, albeit it's equally fast. So we had no choice but to cough a bit of extra money up so that we can get the 1650 Super in this rig so that it can actually have good streaming performance with NVENC. Got that in there, 1650 Super, plenty for CS, Hearthstone, general gaming. So in terms of storage, we went with a SSD. This one's very simple, 480 gig SATA SSD because it's cheap and easy and reasonably fast enough for edits and stuff. And we have a 2TB hard drive for long-term storage of video clips because there will be a lot of clips and footage that will be processed with this PC. Of course, 2TB is not going to be sufficient in the long run, but they only just started, so 2 terabytes should be enough to last their 1080p footage for at least a couple of months, so it should be fine. In terms of the power supply, we went second hand to save a couple of pennies. We're going with the FSP 750 watt 80 plus gold non-modular power supply. Big regret going non-modular in an MATX build because the cable management was quite a nightmare in this case, because it's not a very expensive fancy case, but we saved a couple of bucks here, so that's really all that matters really. In terms of PC case, we have the Tecware Nova M PC case, and I think this is something that a lot of people might be interested in. So if you are interested in this case, I can do a full-on video about my whole build experience with this PC case, but if no one's really interested in it, then I guess I won't review it. But I have a lot of opinions about this case, and while it is an impressive tempered glass, like 40 Singapore dollar case, so $30 US case, it does have a lot of shortcomings and a lot of drawbacks, but it looks great, and once you're done building in it, you don't really have any issues with it. And while it was a nightmare to build, even for a reasonably experienced builder like me, once I figured it out, it wasn't that bad. So in the end of the day, while it is not an amazing MATX case, it looks really good for the money and provided a lot of value in the looks department. So this is the PC rig, and the assembly I actually got most of the things. I actually got the viewers to build it because I wanted them to experience building the PC. The only challenging part of this build, I think, was the cable management. Otherwise, everything is quite default, quite standard. Nothing's really a weird layout. It's pretty much just a standard case, just that there's very little room for cable management, and because we were using a non-modular power supply, cable management was quite a bit of a nightmare. But apart from that, great experience with the viewers. It's not much to talk about. I think there's plenty of video guides out there explaining, you know, how exactly to build a PC. If someone wanted to watch though, if someone wanted me to actually do like an in-depth PC build guide, I'm actually more than happy to do that if so desired. Tell me in the comments and I'll do an in-depth step-by-step video guide for my next PC build. And if you're in Singapore, once again, if you want me to help you with building this PC and you have the funds to build a PC, hit me up on Instagram messages or on email or in the YouTube comments. We can arrange something, sort something out, and then we can work together. I can make a video, you can get a PC out of it. It'll be a fun little experience. So that's that. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you found it a little bit enjoyable. Hopefully some optimization tips and ideas. Hopefully there's some inspiration that you can draw from this build for your own build. Hopefully you learned a little bit of things here and there, whatever. So long as you had a good time, that's good enough. Alright, I'ma head out. See you in the next video. Subscribe.